Entertainment has been with us for a very long time. It had taken many forms and undergone several changes as time goes by. Until this very day, entertainment media, in its many forms, is still a prominent aspect of everyone's lives. It's a single, unforgettable presence that appears in the back of our minds as we went about our days. When middle school students go to internet cafes to play their favorite multiplayer games, or when our moms listen in on cooking tips on the radio, or when our little siblings watch toy videos on YouTube. Entertainment is everywhere, and whether we notice it or not, we crave it, we want it. After a long day of work, a nice break from everything by enjoying the game that is still untouched from the moment you bought it and playing it for 6 hours straight while eating your favorite snacks seems to be the most ideal alternative option for a 5-star cruise ship getaway. All of this does sound like a lot to take in, but in this video, I will specifically talk about how gaming as a form of entertainment media becomes a device for escapism. Please keep in mind that I will solely focus on the game Genshin Impact in order to make this video as I'm more specific. I got the opportunity to interview my friend who had been playing Genshin Impact for a very long time and had also invested a considerable amount of effort into the game. Without further ado, let's dive deeper. Before getting any further though, let's talk a little bit about escapism. Usually, when we hear the word escapism, our thoughts immediately associated with negative connotations. But what is escapism? According to the American Psychology Association, escapism is the tendency to escape from the real world to the safety and comfort of a fantasy world. It is often done because of stressful events in life. This type of coping is necessary for making it through the day. To not confuse you, ignoring reality completely is a totally different thing. It can be detrimental, and that is not what we are going to talk about. Healthy escapism includes reading your favorite fantasy books, dancing in your living room when no one's home, or even playing a role-playing game. Escapism has negative connotations due to the fact that some strategies of escapism that are adapted are not healthy. Some people turn to drugs and alcohol as a form of escapism, but it all comes back to the individual and their abilities to face reality and life. The need for escapism comes from the fact that the negative parts of our lives are more accentuated than the more positive aspects. Escapism can be healthy if done in a controlled amount and through a healthy way. So now that we know about escapism, let's talk about the context in which we are going to discuss. As I mentioned earlier, playing games can be a part of a healthy escapism if done in a controlled amount. Now let's dive into the pillars of healthy escapism in games. We have now come to the section of how to have a healthy escapism through games. We will be discussing the journal Mehmet Kosa and Ahmet Usyal had written titled 4 Pillars of Healthy Escapism in Games: Emotion Regulation, Mood Management, Coping, and Recovery. Also, I think the fact that Ahmet Usyal is an associate in Riot Games is worthy to note. First up, we got the emotion regulation or ER, which is essentially the attempt of modifying the trajectory of emotions according to Gross. In its most fundamental form, it consists of 5 sets of processes which includes situation selection, situation modification, attention deployment, cognitive change, and response modulation. After a certain situation is selected, modified, and attended, an individual can interpret the meaning of the situation themselves and hence regulate emotions. After this, the individual can also regulate the responses that they have to the emotions they are experiencing, therefore distracting an individual from negative feelings, creating the ideal and effective ER strategy according to Webb et al. Second, we have mood management, which is the theory that proposes the idea that people will try to maintain their positive moods and attempt to end their negative moods. According to Zillman, one of the most effective ways for people to do this is by consuming entertainment media, which makes this theory very closely related to the positive aspects of escapism. Applying games as the context of this theory, it is important to keep in mind that there are certain aspects of the game that makes the mood management theory more effective, such as the difficulty of the game and the player's success rate. Next is coping, which is defined as the efforts to minimize problems and stress. Games show the potential to become a reliable medium to be used for coping. An interesting fact is that coping as the characteristic of culminating experiences of forgetting daily life's problems or unpleasant feelings, which was one of the major motivations of gaming for some players. This proves that gaming can become a healthy coping strategy when not taken to extremes. Lastly, we have recovery, which is similar in concepts with mood management theory but has long-term effects. Now, this last part does not have much study in the context of gaming, but it's universally known that gaming can become an effective way of de-stressing and relaxing for some of people. Now that we had covered the healthy pillars of escapism in games, let's talk about its action in real life. As I mentioned before, this video will specifically talk about Genshin Impact as the example, so now let's bring out a friend of mine who is an avid player of Genshin Impact who will be discussing his Genshin gaming habits with me.
I found out about Genshin Impact through my friends. I started playing around the time when Genshin Impact got released around 2020, I think. But I stopped playing for a while before continuing again in 2021 until today, so around a year or so. As I said before, I knew Genshin through my friends. Since they encouraged me to try, I ended up enjoying it. I have put in a lot of hours into the game, even to the point where I've done microtransactions within Genshin. So you can say I even put in a lot of money into the game. I usually play with my friends, so I always feel more at ease whenever I play since I get to spend time with my friends while playing a game that I really love. But sometimes when I play too much, I can become too attached, and yeah, I think that's dangerous. Usually when I'm stressed, I try to calm myself by getting immersed in Genshin so I can take my mind off of things. But as I've said before, sometimes I can become too attached to the point where I unnecessarily spend a lot of money. So yeah, I need to be mindful. Sometimes I play Mobile Legends. Other than that, I think I don't play any other game. Since I don't play a lot of games, there's not much I can say, but for now, I think Genshin makes me feel immersed the best. Well, I guess you can say that whenever I'm frustrated because I lost a match in Mobile Legends, I go to Genshin to bring my mood up again. Sometimes I think they are related to each other. So I can say that one game makes me feel better than the other.
So, from this, we can learn that escapism definitely has positive impacts on an individual if done correctly and not in an excessive amount. As it was mentioned earlier by Ranga, playing games can make you forget about real life problems if done for a little while, but if you do it too much, we can become attached. Now, we don't want that. So now I'm going to show you a way in which we can utilize gaming as a form of healthy escapism. It is none other than having a dedicated time or schedule for gaming. When it comes to having a dedicated time for something, it usually correlates to habits, and I personally think that developing a gaming habit with a healthy and specific goal in mind is not a bad idea. Here's an example. If you're in high school and school ends at around 3 p.m. for you, have a dedicated time for gaming at 6 p.m. or the time you have after dinner until, let's say, 8 p.m. The time before that can be used to do some schoolwork or relaxing, so after you're done doing your responsibilities, you can unwind by playing games in a controlled amount. Alongside this, it's also a good thing to only have gaming nights at certain days of the week. 2 or 3 times a week should be ideal. I must admit, It can be really hard to stop once you start it. But in order for gaming escapism to be healthy, is by having control over ourselves.